Yes, you are now listening to the sound of Sports Reports is Ordered. And those sounds are brought to you by the one and only, the world-renowned, the world-famous. He was born in Texas, raised in BA, representing everything New Jerusalem, and he wants all of y'all to know.
Absolutely.
Even though golf was created in Scotland, it was the Atlantic City Country Club that came up with birdie and eagle. Jersey influence in everything.
Stand up.
He is Mr. Logical. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
And then, of course, it is I, your unorthodox statistician, live to you, coming to you from the Alamo. I do believe in Joe Hendry. I go left so much that you thought I was southpaw. I go by the name of 2-5. And tonight, we're going to talk about some Ace Bailey, some NBA free agency. And are the Steelers going all in? Interesting. But do me a favor out there, like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things with a liquid death in your hand. Let's get to it. So, Mr. Logical.
Your
Ace Bailey finally made it on site.
I was a little touch and go for a while. I was a little nervous for him.
Right. So, it was interesting because, he had his list of destinations that nobody knew. I'm guessing maybe the teams themselves knew, but it sounds like he would have been okay going to Washington. He would have been okay going to, Washington
Brooklyn.
and New Orleans and Brooklyn.
Well,
yeah, those were the three that allegedly he was okay with going to. But he didn't want to go to Philadelphia. He didn't want to go to Charlotte. So my question more or less is, did he just do it wrong?
Yeah, pretty much. Like he didn't have the leverage he thought he did. He wasn't player of the year. They didn't make a deep NCAA tournament run. He wasn't in conversations alongside Cooper Flag for who's going to go number one. So I just felt like I think he just overplayed his card looking at the surrounding talent.
Right.
About all the guys who went back to school, how this year was like the lowest number of guys who actually, submitted documentation that they wanted to be in the draft. I just felt like he looked around. People want to say he's getting bad advice. I don't know that to be factual. I haven't heard his agent come out and say anything. I went to his agent's page. He looks like he's a businessman, entrepreneur that's been building this, I believe it's called Lifestyle Sports Brand or Lifestyle Brand for a few years now via his social media page. I went to his Instagram page. So it looks like this guy's trying to build on something. We always talk about the Black community. You know what? We should bring home our players and build up and have people inside the community that help these guys get out of the community, so forth and so on. He's the father of a WNBA player and another NBA player. So I think he had a great idea. It's just that I believe Ace Bailey was his proverbial ace in the hole, pardon the pun. And that was going to put him on put his lifestyle brand company on the map. Because if I went through his Instagram page, his pictures probably way back to 2021, 2022, when Ace was in high school and doing his different tournaments. Like he was going to be his guy that was going to launch the whole company into this space, the way LeBron did it for Clutch. LeBron's already in the league, but that kind of that meteoric rise I think that was going to come from Ace Bailey. And I think this kind of overplayed their hand. Luckily, he is in a sport where having a guy that's 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", that can score the rock, they'll ignore some of the, the people around him. And of course, when he gets to Utah, they'll put him around other people. And maybe they'll try to pull him away from his agent, whatever the case may be. Or maybe he'll just get out there and enjoy it. Like I say, you and I love it, but we're not, 19-year-old NBA stars or 22-year-old NBA stars. so they might not view it the same way. So I hope he goes out there and balls out, but he's gonna get the most opportunities. He's not have to share the ball, doesn't have to share the spotlight. Utah fans gonna love him. They still love Boozer. They still love Darren Williams, even though Darren Williams got Jerry Sloan fired. Like they got statues of Karl Malone everywhere. I mean, so it was like people
Yeah.
buying their cars from Stockton Malone Toyota
Even though he was on his
tonight,
R. Kelly shit. Like, it's one of those things where, if you're looking at it just
allegedly.
for basketball reasons, you know what I'm saying? You definitely don't think of it as a bad move from a basketball standpoint, because like I wanted him in Washington, but let's pull it back a little bit, pause. You know what I mean? Like we thought this was a 6'2" Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith kind of dude. You know what I'm saying? We find out he's 6'7.5". So now your fear is like,
6'10".
is he Carmelo? You know what I'm saying? And not that that's a bad thing per se, but obviously the game passed that type of player by. So when you go down to 6'7" or so, you're in here with the rest of these guys. You're in here with the SGAs, like you're in here with your own teammate, you know what I'm saying? Dylan Harper. So you don't stand out anymore as you did when we thought that you were 6'10". So then he comes in. So then he comes around and he's like, "Hey, I don't want to go to Philly. I don't want to go to this team." So why doesn't he want to go to Philly? Because they got too many mouths to feed. If you look up and down
Right.
that roster, there's just a lot of dudes on that roster that need to score, that needs the ball in their hand, all that kind of stuff. So I understand why you wouldn't want to go there. Why you want to go to New Orleans? No idea. Why you want
Just
to
you
go to
want the
Brooklyn?
ball.
Why you want to go to Brooklyn? Okay, because you will get the ball and you're familiar since you went to Rutgers. So
True.
you
But like I
kind of
said,
been
I think the agent was kind of also building this black owned agency brand, and that is an area where you can capitalize on it. If you're in Brooklyn, you could probably capitalize on the basketball talent out of New York City, or just the location of being in New York City. New Orleans, you have, if you want to recruit football players, being in Louisiana and down south, that bolsters the brand. NIL deals for guys going to LSU. And what was the other place? Washington.
yeah,
Washington,
Washington. Yep.
Maryland, DC is a very black, heavily black populated and influential area. Like there's a lot of people in DC, Maryland, that area that are black with money, with power, with influence. So you figure you rub elbows with those people, that also propels your brand. Going to Utah will not launch his brand with the black community. Just not a big enough community there. But if he's trying to find athletes, if he's trying to get NIL deals, if he's trying to still build his I'm talking about he being the agent, there's still talent there. You just it won't be the same talent that you think you were planning on recruiting out of these other locations.
Right. And no, I don't think Tyrese Maxey's getting traded. You got McCain coming off an injury. Eric Gordon's probably the odd man out. There's already been rumors that they're trying to gauge the interest for Paul George. What's his name? Grimes, Quentin Grimes is a restricted free agent. So with him, they at least have the choice of we can match what somebody offers, or they could just let him walk if it's obscene or whatever. But also back to Ace Bailey. I think that you just have to ingratiate yourself to the city that you got drafted in. So when we hear, Walter Clayton's already on the plane and is headed that way, Ace was supposed to be on this plane, but he's not. You know what I'm
Allegedly.
saying? So whatever, those fans, might feel a certain way about initially, he's got nobody to blame but himself. And I think what happened in this situation to some degree, just to a little bit of degree, I think they were looking for sympathy on some, hey, like, these, we always hear about Eli Manning, and how he tried to get out of going to San Diego and all that. So people
Yo,
try to
that
make these
draft
equations.
day photo was probably by far the saddest draft day photo I've ever
I
seen.
know.
Remember the Eli when he was holding up
Yep.
the Chargers jersey?
Yep. And
I couldn't imagine being that disappointed being a
and that's
number
the
one
other
pick
thing that Ace
overall.
Bailey messed up on is because you weren't the consensus number one draft pick. Like Cooper Flag could have probably got away or got not as much criticism as Ace got, but the difference would have been is if it was Cooper Flag, people would have just defaulted to they didn't criticize the white boy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, he's just the consensus number one overall pick, and you got a little bit more leeway when you're in that position. Whereas, you know what I'm saying, Ace Bailey, they didn't want Ace to be the bad guy, Mike. Ace wanted to be the bad guy, or his team wanted him to be the bad guy, because this is all stuff that Ace put into motion. There wasn't this thing where teams were like, hey, I don't know how I feel about Ace Bailey. Like, even though we know that he's like uber talented, teams
Yeah,
weren't
like
turning
if
him down.
teams weren't
That
bringing
was
him in for
him.
2 and 3, 4 workouts and still not giving him like, hey, we feel like we're gonna take you at 2 or 3 or 4. It was, rumor has it, allegedly he didn't do the interviews or the workouts for
They said
any
he
of the
worked
team.
out for one team, and it was a day or two before the draft, and we still don't even know who that team is. So he did this to himself, because it's one thing, right? Everybody has a preference. Everybody has a city that they would love to go to, or whatever the case may be. So you made it so okay, it's like, hey, I don't want to go to Philly. Okay, you don't want to go to Philly. No, he was like, I don't want to go to Philly. I don't want to go to Charlotte. I don't want to go. Like, he was just giving you the whole list of teams that were in that range. So basically, to get me, you got to get a trade. And oh, Utah, by the way, if you select me, you might have to trade my rights, or you might have to like he did all
The
this.
the internet journalists were just going ape because I saw one that said the Lakers are the number one uh odds team to land Ace Bailey if Utah trades him. I'm like, it is Thursday morning, like the draft. Like I think like the draft, it was like Friday morning. Like the draft just happened. Like no one's trading the guy just because he didn't show up one day. Like calm down, people. Like I said, I've been neck deep in these sports groups for like the last week, and it's like it's upsetting, but it is what it is. Like I said, I like that he showed up. I like the answer he gave at the press conference.
Let's see. Hold up, real
Um,
quick, Raph. Hold on. Let me
yeah,
say this real quick. But Mike, but to your point though, yes, he did go number 5. He did stay in the lottery, but he also cost himself about 9.5 million. Just from being number 3 to number 5 is a 9.5 million decrease. So like,
see,
so
that's what I'm saying.
we
So I
can't
wouldn't
talk
want to go
about
to
it.
Utah. Why? Like, no one knows why they don't want to go to Utah other than there's a bunch of white people there. Because let's keep it a bean. It's like 16 teams in the NBA that aren't winning. 4 of them just
Anything.
happen to get into the play-in. They just stumble their way into the play-in. So there's about 12 teams that are trying to win. Of that 12, 5 to 6 really have a shot. So the only way you get an opportunity to win is get the players in. I know people who go down to Oklahoma for training because of air crew training. They tell me it's not much out there.
There ain't.
But if you go there with Shea, J Dub, the other J Dub, you draft Chet, you bring in a good coach. Now, those guys drove through Oklahoma City on buses that said 2025 NBA champions.
Right.
It just, you have to go there. You can't just, the fact that people think this is NBA 2K, it's not realistic. You're not going to just be like, oh, I want to go there because they look like they're building something. I'm going to fit right in. Yeah, you might go there and get 16 minutes. Now you're upset because you're not getting any run. Like when you went there with 2 guys that already play your position. One guy's getting 42 million a year, the other guy's getting 16 as a backup.
Yeah, and to get those endorsements you're talking about, you got to meet the hype too. You know what I mean? And as far as like these teams that aren't trying to win, like it just depends on your perspective. You know what I mean? Like there's because like I don't know. I guess at the end of well, I mean, everywhere is racist if that's what it is. You know what I mean? Like everywhere. Like, even if he went to Philly, you don't think he's going to deal with some of those South Jersey dudes? You don't think that if he went to Washington, he's going to deal with those like Northern VA dudes? Like,
Yo,
it's going to be racism everywhere you go.
I've dealt with more like racism and just kind of like this racial undertone more in Philly than I have in Salt Lake City. Like I'll keep it a buck. Like I lived in both places for the last 18 years between the two places. Jesus Christ, I've been there a long time.
Right. And
I
and
did
and
eight
and, and
years
you're
in
right,
Utah,
Mike.
10 years here. It's
Just like when
you're
I
gonna
joined the
do it no matter
military.
what.
Yeah, just like when I joined the military, right? Goldsboro, North Carolina wasn't the place for me. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in Baltimore. I went down to Goldsboro and it was culture shock. You know what I mean? That's just how it works, but that's part of being an adult and growing into an adult is overcoming adversity. Yes, I
Especially
do
if they're
believe
gonna
that.
like. I mean, I know money isn't everything, but yes, they can like if they're gonna pay you to move somewhere, like give it a shot.
Yeah,
And
he's
like I
not going
said,
for free. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And he's going to get the ball all he wants. He's going to get all the shots that he wants, which is theoretically the most important thing. But yes, Utah is going to build around him. You know what I mean? Like they don't have a choice but to. You know what I mean? Or else they're
yeah.
going to replace their
They don't
leadership and
have
get
the
somebody in there
luxury
that
of
will.
expecting somebody else to want to leave. They don't
Yeah,
have the luxury of thinking Devin Booker's going to want to leave Phoenix and come north to Utah. Like, and that's very close to where, like, if you think about like a player, like, all right, you think about a guy that's on the outs and he plays in New York, either Brooklyn or the Nets, and you're Philly, and that guy lives in Jersey. If you're Philly, you probably think like, yo, we probably can get this guy out of New York, get him to come down to Philly. His life's not gonna really be that altered. Utah's right there. They couldn't get Devin Booker out of Phoenix to come to Utah, so they have no choice but to draft the guys they draft or make real trades with guys that'll be serious. They can't get a lot of guys that want this kind of Instagram stardom because you're not going to get that it's not going to be fueled in Salt Lake City. If
yeah,
you
and
ever
I
get a
mean
team in
Utah is
Vegas, you get a team in
basically
LA, like yeah, Kawhi Leonard can make the whole King of LA New Balance commercials and it makes
mhm.
sense. But with Utah, they know they have to develop their players and have to give those guys a real shot.
Right. But then and again, Mike, you know, saying Eli was the consensus number one pick. That's why it works out like that. You know what I mean? He
And
was
it
going to get
still
picked
was a
number one.
brat move. Like that's the thing.
Right.
No one looked at it like, oh, this is a smart move. When even people talk about Joe Burrow should do it, it still looked at as a very brash and braggadocious move. And without Eli's 2 Super Bowls, like I think people are viewing that whole process very differently. If his
Right.
last name was Eli Brown, I think people looking at that differently because he was a
Yeah.
man.
And
They
yeah,
figured
he
he
had
had
his
two
dad on his
people
side.
already,
Like Ace
dad
Bailey
already
has a
signed.
dude, like Ace Bailey's agent isn't even certified.
Yeah,
So like you don't even have like so like uh, Rich Paul would be the easy person, but let's use somebody like Drew Rosenhaus. They've been around long enough to where they have relationships with these people in the league to where you saw the call with Rich Paul on the phone with Ishbia talking about, oh, you want Malawatch? That's all I needed to hear. Like Ace Bailey's agent doesn't have that cachet yet. So you're coming out the gate causing trouble and starting these ripples, and you're not even certified yet. So so
yeah.
so like it just put Ace in a bad position overall. But anyway, I'm happy with Trey Johnson to Washington. You know, I didn't know what was going to happen after Ace went to Utah, but I'm glad that Trey was still there. But Mr. Logical, call me crazy. Call me crazy. But I love everything the Hornets did on draft night. I love everything the Hornets did. You know, I love the Con Knipple pickup, even though I'm not big on him. It's one of those situations where, like, hey, I just need you to consistently knock down open jumpers. I don't need you to come in here and try to be the savior.
But what is there like I said, I'm trying to walk in this light of positivity instead of just shitting on teams' moves. It's like, all
Oh, I
right,
got some
cool.
shit in a minute.
What are you? How are you gonna make this work when your point guard shoots 24 shots a game? Like he only.
Because I don't need you to come in here. I don't need you to shoot 24 shots. Like I just need
But
you.
I'm saying the guy
I
who
need you
has
to
the
get a
ball in his hand doesn't give the ball up. He shoots 24, 26 shots a game, 8 threes, like contested, one-legged. Just he puts on a show, but he doesn't lead your offense. You keep going through coaches. You're in your second
I
ownership
mean,
group since LaMelo's been
think
there.
about how bad Charlotte is. Think about how bad they are, right? He still averages 7 assists. You know what I'm saying? He's had two seasons over 8 assists. So I mean, like he shares the ball. They just don't got good players. You know what I mean? But like that's what I'm saying though. But you bring in Knipple You bring in Liam McNeely. Like I said, I'm not big on either one of them. But you know what I'm saying? Scott Lee is their coach. He was a Celtics assistant. But I'm just saying that, you know what I mean? You got two shooters theoretically that, you know what I'm saying? Because right now, your only shooter was, you know, that played a lot of minutes was Brandon Miller, you know, and he was hurt this year. So
Yeah.
now I got two dudes that are actually shooters and not scorers that can catch off those wings. And I went out and got my guy Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton, the big 7'2". Remember the
Yeah.
overtime game against Oregon. So I'm not saying that the Hornets are, oh my God, they're going to be this year's Detroit Pistons or anything like that. But I think that they've set themselves up for years to come with some solid players.
Yeah. I just think the contrast and playing style of the players that you put on the floor is gonna be difficult. OKC, those guys play very similar game. Like if you look at Indiana, those guys play a similar game. Even look at like the Clippers, very grinded out guys. I think LaMelo plays so I won't say inconsistent, but it's like consistently like showtime, and that doesn't lead to winning. And you have guys that are just like Knipple's, like he's probably pretty athletic, and he's a big body, but he's probably not beating a lot of NBA wing defenders off the dribble. So he's got to be ready to catch and shoot.
Mm-hmm.
If he's out there and Melo just pulling up step back 1 foot threes, and he's not getting into a groove, and he ends up like Dalton Connect, where it's like, yo, y'all not putting me in position for me to do the thing that I could do, and then you try to trade, so it's like, and I think that's what Ace Bates was like, yo, I don't want to go to a team where you guys don't deploy me properly, and now I'm unemployed because you guys didn't do your part. I think Charlotte is one of those places where guys just go, they don't do it right, they be in the organization, and now guys just kind of matriculate to different teams, and it looks like they are washed up. But really, Charlotte hasn't shown it. Like you can't be this inconsistent for this many years when you get the same opportunity to pick players. So hopefully the draft works out. But like I said, I think they have
Yeah, I like it.
contrasting styles. The same way I felt
I
about
mean,
Houston
at
a
the end
couple
of the
years
day,
ago
it's
with the
going to
young
come
versus
down.
old.
Well, at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to health. You know what I mean? Like, can LaMelo even stay on the floor? And of course, Brandon Miller missed most of this season too. But then you got a team like, let's throw a dart and say Brooklyn,
Oh, I knew
five
you was gonna
draft
say
picks.
it.
Yeah, 5 draft picks in the first round. And of course, a guy like me is like, hey, package something up, go get somebody, go get a higher draft pick, whatever it might be. Get up there and get Ace Bailey. You know what I'm saying? So out of their 5 first round picks, they drafted about 1.5 players that I like. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? So then on top of that, you traded Cam Johnson for Michael Porter, which is basically like the Spider-Man meme, but I do think Cam Johnson is slightly better, but Spider-Man meme. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So I don't even know what
That can be
direction.
one of those things where it's like you get him in a new environment. He has the championship. He has the ring. He has like the understanding of like the grind to play 100+ basketball games in a year, multiple years, and maybe just to change the scenery. Like I say, he was playing the last series, with a hurt shoulder. He couldn't lift his arm up,
Right,
so he
right.
definitely was grinding out. But maybe you get to Brooklyn and he gets his opportunity to shine. Like I said, we talk about the East. The East off the rip has 3 teams. Well, we'll get to Milwaukee, but like so we have three of your top teams missing a star because of an Achilles injury. And like I said, Dame Lillard, they just got waived, but he wasn't going to be there next year anyway. So you have 15 teams in each conference. 4 or 5 of them are just going to be bad. Washington just tends to not really be able to get it right. Charlotte can't really get it right. Miami's going through something. I imagine they'll be able to grind, but there's only so much you could do when you're kind of
Well,
missing the
Miami and
playmakers you
Memphis are
need.
confusing to me because I never know what they're trying to do. Like, so I was looking at this free agency period, and obviously it's only day 2. You know what I mean? But I've been looking at this like I haven't heard the Miami Heat's name one time during this whole frenzy
I
or
heard
whatever
it.
you want to call it.
Duncan Robinson went to Detroit.
Well, yeah, that too. I mean, they got
That was it.
Simone Fontecchio out of it, but what does that do? But anyway, with Memphis, right? They gave Triple J the money. And you were saying earlier, like once they made the Bane trade, you thought that maybe they would look at moving Ja, but they didn't yet, at least. So then they brought in Ty Jerome. They lost. Like I just don't know what their goal is, because I did like Cedric Coward in the draft, and I am happy he won't be at Duke next year. They went and got Jalen Wells last year in the draft. Remember, he got taken out during one of the last games of the season when he got undercut. So, so you're good at your wings probably, but I still think that they're missing something. Like, and I don't know if they have the mentality to go get it. Like, they just kind of develop you and just let it ride. Whereas
Yeah.
Miami is doing the Mike Tomlin thing prior to this year, where they're saying, hey, we have this great coach, probably a top 2 or 3 coach in this league. We could put shit out there and he'll turn it to pudding.
Yeah, and like I said, when you are a team like Brooklyn or any one of these Eastern Conference teams, you feel good about your chances of being in the top 6. Like, I think any team that really made moves, they hired a good, solid, smart coach. They have either one of the top, we'll say 18 superstars in the league. That's, your main guy. Like Orlando has Banchero, and they have Wagner. Then, they brought Bain in. I think some teams in the East could look like, what, we might have a shot. And I think Brooklyn might be one of those teams.
No,
You're gonna have to just play the young guys. You're just gonna have to play the young guys and see how it pans out.
I think Brooklyn's got their eyes on AJ DeBancha for next year. I think that's what Brooklyn's doing, because we
I
talked
can't
about
imagine
this.
that a team is gonna go into an off season right now where they're cutting checks for people.
No, but
They're
think
gonna
about it.
go into an off season where
All right,
they're
so hold on,
buying
wait.
supplies for their stadium, buying the t-shirts, making the deals, and
They're
having
New
these
York. They
41
don't give a
home
fuck. They
games.
know people going to
41
support.
home games and figure like, we'll go 20-62 and we'll get this other kid next. It just doesn't. You can't go into
But
the
think about
season
it though.
like that.
Think about it like this. Let's break this down for a quick second. So they went and got Igor Demon, right?
Yeah,
Who I compared to Josh Giddey. You know what I'm saying? He might just be more of a 6'9" Ricky Rubio. He can't shoot. He fades against good competition. Then you went out and got Traore, one of the ones that I do like, but he's, a guard coming over from Europe, and there's some adjustment, I would imagine. You know what I mean? He's
correct.
not 7'3" or 7'5" like Wemby. Then you got Ben Taraf from Israel, who even like I'm sure even Jewish people were like, why? You know what I'm saying? Then they went and got Drake Powell out of North Carolina, whose calling card is defense. So like you went in the first round and got a defender from a school that hasn't produced an all-star since Vince Carter. You know what I mean? And then,
A
I
top
can't even
5
remember,
pick.
or whatever it was.
Yeah,
I
top
still
5
can't,
picks.
I still can't remember who the 5th person is, but so you did all that, right? You brought Michael Porter in, Michael Porter Jr. in. You know what I mean? You still got to figure out if you're going to re-sign Cam Thomas or not. He's a restricted free agent right now. So, the rest of your roster is like, okay, Nick Claxton's good. They re-signed Day'Ron Sharp. Then you got Dariq Whitehead. I don't know what they're going to do with him. Keon Johnson. I don't know what so like, you don't even see anything on their roster. Like, so if you're looking at Utah, you can go, I think Ace Bailey was a top 3 player in this draft, and they went out and got Walter Clayton. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, when I'm looking at Brooklyn, I'm like, I mean, they had 5 picks.
they definitely didn't do what you think they should have done. But like I said, I find it hard to believe that we still have trust the process kind of ideologies in the NBA, as we see how that didn't work out. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
as a GM, you sitting in a meeting with the owner, the president of player personnel, vice president team, chairman, COO, CFO, all these people on the board, and you're like, hey, remember that thing they did down in Pennsylvania? We're going to do that same thing. We're just not going to call it that. I just can't imagine that a team would go into the offseason with that. Can you make the bad pick? Can you make a pick based off of, like, what? I really like this guy's intangibles, instead of being like, yo, this dude is only 6'6", 196. I really need a guy that's 6'8", 228, but you like, I like this guy's intangible, so I'll take him. Is that if you're making those kind of decisions? Yeah, it might backfire. But the same, just like I said, it's wide open in the East. Giannis would probably, be smart to stay in Milwaukee as Mike brings up the Bucks. But
What
it's
you but see, but next year's draft has so this year it was the big three, right? For the most part. And then they tried to throw VJ Edgecombe in there, who I think was a great pick for Philly just because of style of play. But next year you might be looking at a big six or a big seven in the NBA draft. So like, I just feel like there's a lot more bite of the
yeah, but
apple there.
even with
You
that, we haven't seen the league has basically transitioned away from allowing rookies to be impact players. Like Wimby was an impact player simply because he literally looks like Slender Man. But as far as like on the court, if you watch Wimby should be, I know it's difficult to average 26 to 30 points in the NBA, but he should be put in position to where that is reasonable to think he could get it. But we watch those Spurs games. The ball doesn't go through him. The action towards the rim doesn't go through him. The lobs don't go to him. It's they could just literally run pick and roll lobs with him or pick and pops where he's shooting jumpers all game long. He was cutting through the paint. No one's looking to get him the ball. So it's just like so many rookies have been in the league over the past few years, and the teams that get them don't even put them in position to be, superstars. So
right.
Brooklyn waiting on, like you said, yours the potential big six or big seven next year. It's like, yo, Reed Shepard was number 3 overall last year, right? And he played most of his time in some suburb in
Yeah, Reed
Galveston.
Shepherd's
But
probably like 5'11" too.
either way, they took him third. What's the boy named Rod Dillingham in
Yeah,
Minnesota? He was doing his
yeah.
thing once again, undersized. Was like, you're not these rookies that are coming out. They're not getting the opportunity to shine.
But I
Everybody
think but
still
I
they're
think
still
these
moving all the
rookies
old
will
guys around to
because
give them a stop.
because 5 out of the 6 are 6, 7 and up. So, you know what I mean? Like, I think there'll be room there, you know what I mean? And I don't think you can really go wrong with at least 4 of them. So, but we'll get there. But
Yeah,
Milwaukee, Mike brought up Milwaukee, so Miles Turner, 4 years, 107 million. But to make that work, they had to waive and stretch Dame Lillard's salary. So now you look at the rest of Milwaukee, right? They did some things that I said they should do in my video the other day. I said they need to re-sign Torian Prince and Gary Trent Jr. They at least got Prince done. You know what I mean? They re-signed Kevin Porter. So now what do you do with Kyle Kuzma? What do you do with my guy Andre Jackson? Because Doc doesn't like to play him. They traded Pat Connaughton.
yeah. Trade him to Charlotte.
So I don't know. So I don't know if Milwaukee is anywhere closer today than they were when the season ended.
I don't like I said. I don't believe they're closer either. But I don't know if there's moves that definitively move you closer, and other than
Oh, and they
working
brought
with
back
what
Bobby
you
Portis
currently
too.
have. Yeah.
Mhm.
Working with what you currently have and you add a couple pieces. I don't know how happy or unhappy Giannis is, but if he's good with Miles Turner being there and he's upset about Dame, you let him vent to you about the Dame situation. You explain to him how it works. And I think you can run it back. They are probably the only Eastern Conference team with the superstar that the other teams in the Eastern Conference are truly concerned with taking over games in a matchup. I know Jalen Brunson's a really good player. I don't think the other 14 teams are thinking like, oh man, Jalen Brunson's really can really put the team on his back. I know people love Donovan Mitchell. I'm not sure if he just kind of spreads this fear and ferocity throughout the Eastern Conference teams. Giannis is probably the only player that's going to play 60 to 75 games. So, like, that many games, get the ball a lot and be the centerpiece of the team. And people say, back in the day when LeBron was running his 8 in a row or the East this week, the East, unfortunately, is just injured. It's injured. and some of them don't have coaches, and then some of them have aspirations that are pretty high. I know Detroit's going to do pretty well, but as far as like night in and night out, the Milwaukee Bucks Eastern Conference team is probably the only one that can walk into the arena and say, I have a top 3 or 4 player in the NBA leading my team. I don't think anybody else in the East can say that.
Yeah, so they got Bobby Portis. I don't care about Gary Harris. You know what I mean? They lost Brooke Lopez to the Clippers. So there's your Miles Turner upgrade. So, but from there, I just don't know. They need more. So like, and I don't even think it's
I don't think
necessarily
they
a
do though.
I
I
think they
don't think
do.
they
I think
need
they I
more.
think they need people that you can rely on. You know what I mean? You can't rely on Kuzma at this stage. You know what I mean? Kevin Porter
He
is a good
does
player.
play like he's learning how to play basketball sometimes.
Yeah.
It just
Like
feels like, yo, dog, why didn't you just set that a good hard screen and then roll to the basket? Like, why are you in the corner waiting on a three with 2 seconds left on the shot clock? Like, get to the cup. Like, what are you doing?
yeah. But Dame just got old and hurt though. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like, when they got Dame, that's what they knew they were getting. You know what I mean? And even right now, there's teams waiting in line apparently for
Yeah.
Dame. But I think that Kuzma's the big issue. Are they going to bring? Well, you know what, Mike? They waived Ryan Rollins. They waived him today. You know what I mean? Then you got you need at least to get Gary Trent Jr. back because him and Torian Prince were both two of the best shooters in the NBA this year, and that's why I thought that they should bring those back because we always talk about this. Like how do you build a LeBron team? You just let him penetrate and kick it out to the shooters. How do you build a Giannis team? Kick it out to the shooters. So same thing. You know what I mean? That's why Kuzma doesn't fit because one, he doesn't shoot good enough. Two, he doesn't take smart enough shots. So I just don't know as of today. Obviously, we still got a whole free agency period and trades and all that to go through. But as
Yes.
we sit here today, what I'm saying, I think that Milwaukee's worse. You know what I mean? And we'll just have to see how that plays out. But
Right.
you know, um, we were going to talk about New Orleans for a quick second because I was upset that they traded up 10 spots to get Derek Queen, which I don't have a problem with them getting Derek Queen. I like Derek Queen. But to trade up 10 spots
The,
and
the the Atlanta thing where you just give up your first round pick when
yeah,
you could
you
have
gave
like
up your first
you
round
probably could
pick.
have negotiated a little bit better.
And the thing about that pick, that the only reason I'm upset about that pick, if it was just a regular pick, so be it. But the reason that I'm upset about that pick is because it's the worst, or I guess it would be the better draft position between their pick and Milwaukee's pick next year. So theoretically, you could have
So this
Atlanta.
25-26 season.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So next year they can, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, he could play Mike, but he can't play no defense. Like y'all always looking at things through this offensive lens. Like there's two sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? But Atlanta could end up with the number one draft pick, even if they make an Eastern Conference Finals run or something like that, because New
But
Orleans is
that's
still going to be
predicated
bad.
on Milwaukee being terrible, correct?
What possibly, but I think New Orleans is going to be bad enough though. That's the thing because if you're looking at New Orleans right now, right, they got Jordan Poole. They got DeJounte Murray, who's coming off of a ACL or an Achilles. You
Yeah,
got
Achilles.
Zion, who never plays anyway. You know what I mean? You went out and got a center today that I can't think of right now, but they went out and got Kevon Looney. They went out and got Kevon Looney today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're talking about potentially trading one of Trey Murphy or Herb Jones. So when I'm looking at New Orleans, and I don't even know if Willie Green is basically a lame duck at this point. So if you're the Hornets, can I trust you to win more than 32 games? And that might even be generous depending on how many games Zion plays. So the pick that they would have been whatever was the highest pick between them and Milwaukee. So now Atlanta
Okay.
gets that. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. So
Okay.
even if Atlanta were to make the Eastern Conference Finals, The Hornets, I mean, the Pelicans could be bad enough that Atlanta could still get a top 3 pick. And that's why I feel like you don't give that up, because you're not a team in a position right now. Like if they were a middling team, like say they were Memphis, you could look at Memphis and say, hey, you know what? That team might win 43 to 48 games or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that pick doesn't matter so much. You know what I mean? But like we're talking about you and your sorry asses. You know what I'm saying? Like you ain't winning those games to make that pick not matter in that way. I don't know if the Bucks will be terrible, but I don't think that they're going to be that good. Like I think that I could see a 43 and 39 or something along those lines, just based off how they're set up right now. I'll change my mind once we see the final roster, but just sitting here right now, that's how I feel. Like right here, right now, I don't know if New Orleans.
So they're
82
games. They're 82 game season. How many are they playing in the East? About 50, something like that. Because I think you play a couple against the Western
teams. You played the West twice. Yeah, you played the West twice.
20,
so 30 games.
30 games.
So 52 games.
So 52 games against the East. We're looking at Chicago. Is Chicago improving? Or are they going to set back? The Raptors.
Well, Chicago lost Lonzo.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like Chicago, Toronto. Toronto looks like they're making advancements. The
Toronto's
Pacers
building
are probably
their
going to take a
roster.
step
I just
back.
don't like it. I just don't like their roster, but they're building it.
Pacers are taking a step back. I think the Cavaliers are probably going to get squeezed for one or two of their role players because of the type of season that those guys had playing, 10 or 11 guys.
Well, allegedly,
and people
right
watching,
now,
seeing like how the NBA Finals, how the NBA Finals
Garland
went.
or Allen are on the table.
Yeah, playing 8 or 9, 10 guys seems to be the new consensus for coaches. We know it's a copycat league, NFL. We talk about all the time, that cliche phrase, but I could see the Bucks having a really good season and that pick not really factoring in. The problem with New Orleans is that their, your best ability is availability, and they're kind of banking on guys coming back from injury and then Zion just staying healthy. I don't know what's causing his injuries, because they say, oh, he's up to this weight, but it's like when you see him play, he's explosive enough. He's above the rim. He doesn't rebound well, but on the break, you can tell he still has a lot of bounce. I can't imagine him having that much bounce while simultaneously being out of shape. So I'm not sure what's causing his injuries. Like, is he always pulling a hamstring?
And then they drafted a point guard that can't shoot. Which I do
just
like that
bounce
player.
passes.
Like he's like I'm not a big person on Jeremiah Fears. I think he has the ability to become a star at some point, but I think of him more in that Westbrook mold than, like a Chris Paul or like a, somebody along those lines that's deadly efficient or whatever the case may be. So I don't know how good they're going to be next year. And like I said, I don't even know if Willie Green makes it through the season, to be honest with you. But that's just me. That's just me. And then, of course, Toronto got rid of Masai Ujiri, a move that kind of shocked a lot of people.
On the front of the treadmill for a long time. I thought they were going to get rid of him 2 years ago.
Well, indulge me for a second. Because I know a lot of people are going to do the whole, like, no, I didn't say that, Mike. It's just about the odds, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the worst record, the odds. That's all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is since 2014. These are the first round picks that Masai Ujiri has made. Bruno Caboclo, DeLon Wright, Jakob Poeltl, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Malachi Flynn, Scotty Barnes, Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, and bootleg Julius Randle this year. So like there's a lot of mixed review there. And then, when you really look at it,
well, they don't also even have a 50-plus win team for a long time. Definitely. So they were getting your 17th overall pick. Is like,
guess what? The Bulls got Jimmy Butler at 30. You know what I'm saying?
And like, Jimmy Butler took 30 years to become a star. Like, let's keep it a beam. Jimmy Butler didn't come out the gate shooting Jimmy buckets. He was Jimmy Butler, the kid that went to Marquette that grew up homeless. It was a sad story for a long time.
Hey, Jimmy Butler,
and then he grew his hair out and he started looking like a tiki doll.
By
and then all
year
of a
3,
sudden
we knew what he was doing. By
we
year
knew
3, we knew what he was doing.
he was
All right,
basically another Shumpert.
Where's Bruno Caboclo right now?
Oh yeah, he's probably somewhere making coffee.
DeLon Wright only got in the game because Jalen Brunson was tired in the play, and he had to get into
But that's
game.
not his fault. Tip should have
Where's
been put him in the
Malachi Flynn
game.
at? Where's Malachi Flynn at?
I'm gonna say Israel playing basketball.
You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. And then not only that, you got to peel it back, right? They got fortunate that Kawhi fell into their laps. And then even then, he won a championship and left. Then you lost Siakam and OG. And what did you get for him?
Yo, listen.
You held on to Van Vliet too long.
The whole city of Toronto was trying to recruit Kawhi. They had restaurants that told Kawhi he could eat free for the rest of his life. There was apartment buildings that were trying to give him penthouses.
And he still said no.
The entire city. It wasn't Nigeria. He couldn't do anything about it. Like the whole city was trying to recruit Kawhi after that championship. Literally, they will name streets after him, give him a penthouse apartment in Toronto. He wanted to leave. So that wasn't Masai's fault. Yes, everyone, if you looked at most of these GM's draft picks, they're going to be pretty terrible. And the lucky thing just happened to work out. We could talk about Nico down in Dallas. His plan to trade Luka and be championship ready backfired. He just got lucky when the number 1 pick fell into his lap. That wasn't the plan. So sometimes these GMs, they are at fault. Boy, cut it out.
I mean, you see Michael Beasley in trouble right now? Or Malik Beasley, my bad, Mike Beasley.
Well, you saw what's the boy name that just
Terry Rozier? He was just bad.
He just was out there playing bad.
He was just bad.
But look, he played so bad. The FBI investigated you. Like, yo, he can't. But I can't be this bad at basketball. You got to be up to something. Like, nah, dog, I'm just having an off year. A lot of things in my mind. All right.
I like what the Nuggets did. You know what I mean? They brought in Cam Johnson, like we talked about earlier. They went and got Bruce Brown back. So another ball handler that can kind of relieve Jokic and take some strain off of Jamal Murray from time to time. They went out and got Tim Hardaway Jr. So, the one thing we talked about all year was
Valanciunas as well.
Yes, they got Valanciunas to back up Jokic, who's probably the best backup Jokic has ever had. So now we're looking at this and we're like, hey,
just give me 12 minutes of rest, dog.
Denver's in there now.
I see to play 36 minutes. Can I get 36? Can I get 12 minutes of game on this bench?
Now Denver Denver's in the mix again. You know what I mean? But then you look at a team like Golden State, and I just go like this and I say, why y'all still don't want a center? You know what I'm saying? You let Looney walk. You know what I'm saying? Only thing that's out there right now, like that probably moves any needles, maybe is DeAndre Ayton. Maybe you could trade for Robert Williams, but it sounds like the Lakers are trying to get involved in that. Just like the Lakers.
Williams was already kind of promised to another team, right? I thought that conversation was already happening. Like he was already out of Charlotte with somebody else was potentially.
No, that's Mark Williams you're thinking about. That's Mark Williams. Yeah. He went to Phoenix, but Robert Williams, they used to play for the Celtics. I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like you got him out in Portland. It sounds like the Lakers are trying to either get him, Nick Richards, or DeAndre Ayton. Those are the three that the Lakers are looking at. So I guess the Warriors get whoever's left, but there's also rumors that Golden State is interested in Al Horford. And it's like, are they just trying to put a nursing home staff together?
I thought he retired. I thought he didn't retire yet. 2 weeks ago that he was going to retire.
No, he hasn't retired. I was wondering if Mike Conley was going to retire. You know what I mean? But then
these playoff losses have to be disappointing to the fact. I think I don't know if you can ramp yourself back up again, considering all the conversation and the narrative surrounding, because they talked about every year the last few years that he's been in the playoffs. They would talk about winning for Mike, and every year, every team, Memphis came up short. And who else came up short? Like I said, Minnesota's come up short the last 2 years. So it's like, do you really want to sit in the locker room and be the old guy and have the young guy look? He's like, maybe we're gonna win this for you, and you go out in the second round again.
Well, they just got done spending $225 million on Julius Randle and Naz Reid, and you know what I mean. So like Minnesota, I guess, is running it back, which ain't nothing wrong with that. Now you can get Dillingham more minutes. You could get Terrence Shannon more minutes. get some dynamic abilities unlocked. And then you got Atlanta. They were the beneficiary because Minnesota wasn't able to retain Nikhil Alexander Walker. For in case you didn't know, and Doris Burke didn't tell you 76 times, he is the cousin of SGA, who, by the way, is making 71 million a year now. 71 million a year. Get out of here. But anyway, Atlanta, they picked up Nikhil Alexander Walker. I love that pickup. Another 3-and-D guy, good three-point shooter, good defender, and trying to penetrate through Nikhil Alexander Walker and Dyson. Whoo, Dyson Daniels, woo. That's gonna be tough sledding for these teams in the East to make. And that's why I was trying to tell Mr. Logical earlier, just like I told Mike earlier, two sides of the ball. We can actually say that Atlanta is going to be playing defense this year. But before I even get back to Atlanta, Mr. Logical, 71 million a year?
That seems reasonable.
Okay.
Nah, it's a lot of money. It's a crazy, and I think he left money on the table. I think his deal could have been bigger than that.
That's nuts, man.
I just don't. I can't even like that math is probably. It's probably like $325 a second in a 48-minute NBA game.
Yeah, they
like
said
that.
almost $1 million a game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was 4 years, 285. But yeah. So back to Atlanta. So Atlanta has ground to gain in the East, right? This is a proverbial perennial play-in team. This is what they do with Trae Young leading the league in assists, but the wins just not adding up. You know what I mean? But like I said, they went out and got Nikhil to put next to Dyson Daniels, perimeter defense on fleek. They went out and got Porzingis, the unicorn. So if we could figure out what was wrong with him this past season, then they're cooking with grease. You got Jalen Johnson coming back from his injury. He was going to be my most improved player of the year until he got hurt. So, I like what Atlanta's doing. You know what I mean? And like you keep saying, we look at this East, the Knicks and Cleveland are the only teams that I think can definitively say, and of course, this is on paper because we haven't seen them play a game yet. But on paper, those are the only teams that can right now say that they're better than the Hawks. Maybe the Pistons, just because of continuity. And,
I like the Pistons. I think the continuity matters, and I think their size matters over Atlanta. I know Porzingis is there, but I think the star of Atlanta is just undersized, and I think he can be. I want to say exploited, but it's just I don't know how much energy you can have when you are 6', 6'1", and you're game 88, 89 of the season because you're in the playoffs and you're battling when you're just battling through these bigger defenders. Because so when it boils down to it, they're gonna figure out what your weakness is. I think Detroit having 6'7", 6'8" guys handling the ball, making shots as their playmakers, it just gives them that advantage.
Yeah, they went out and got Duncan Robinson, like we said earlier. They went out and got Karis LeVert. So I don't know if Karis LeVert makes Jaden Ivey redundant or not, but just another ball handler, but a guy that shoots way too much probably. But so I don't like them losing Tim Hardaway
At least
Jr.
you had two of those guys. You can see who's on and who's off.
Right.
Where some teams just literally just have to play that guy because you don't have a replacement.
Mm-hmm. Orlando went out and got Tyus Jones.
SGA is going to be getting $300.64 per minute or per second.
That's nuts. And so OKC, of course, they've been pretty quiet since the draft. So the Lakers, we got to go there. You know what I mean? They went out and got Jake LaPervia as soon as I know what I said. As soon as the free agency started, him and his Angel Reese loving self. His name is LaRavia.
Real?
Yes, that was real.
That's a real tweet.
That was a real tweet.
This year, May of this year,
that's a
sat
real
up
tweet.
there and got his little iPhone out and said, "This is how I'm going to express myself." Jesus Christ.
Yes.
I thought it was fake.
That karma will make people go crazy, but
That
But
peanut butter
that's a good
skin.
pickup for the Lakers. That's a good pickup for the Lakers. The problem is he about 25 pounds too light for what they need. So they're still on this hunt for a big man, and I'm at the point where I'm frustrated because I hate the Lakers more than just about anything in sports. But you know what I mean. But they have the ability to go out and sign these dudes. But now it's like, oh,
They
now I
aren't
might have to give up
they
Rui.
are not sound organizationally. They haven't been
What
for
does Palinka do
years.
all day? Does he just
He
wait for
does
Nico
not
to call
do
him?
anything. That's what I'm saying. They've been gifted stars because of location. If they were in Utah, run the way they were run with the family business and the guy who used to be the agent of the latest greatest player you have for the organization, and then you run off one of the greatest players from the organization after he gets you the next greatest guy. It's like they just are run poorly, and
Just let
just
me
by
get this Bradley Beal
location,
for LeBron trade, bro.
just location is how they get there, is how they create optimism every year. Having going from Magic to Shaq and Kobe and Paul. Kobe retires, couple of years they were in the law. LeBron comes along, delivers a championship. They've been in the law just up and down. Western Conference Finals
Damn,
appearance
AD don't
out
even
in the
get no
first
shout out,
round.
huh?
My bad. With AD, apologies. And then you move AD, you get Luca. Now you have Luca and LeBron, and it's like
So do you think this LeBron to
you have
Dallas
all
thing
this
makes any
stuff.
sense?
No, I don't think any of it makes any sense. All I think it is that everybody needs to generate conversation, and the person that they use is the face of the NBA, and it's LeBron James. There's no reason if I'm Dallas to bring LeBron in and have him stunt Cooper Flag. I
What
got to
about
think
Golden
like
State?
Golden State. He
Trade
doesn't
Jimmy
play the way
Butler?
he doesn't play the way we need. He plays well with Steph because I think he recognizes that Steph is dope, but he plays well with Steph in All-Star games and during the Olympic stuff. And I think that's enough. That's, we give it a few warm-up, tune-up games, some practices, some time together. I think he respects the way all these guys play, but when it boils down to it, he plays a very particular brand of basketball, and I think he could adjust, but you're not going to get him to adjust offensively and then he'd be like this juggernaut defensively just because Father Time is undefeated. Jimmy Butler's a few years younger. You imagine that he probably has a few more energy boost defensively than LeBron has. And like the guy is gonna be 41. Like let's not, like everyone's saying this is an excuse. Like this is a fact. 41, you've been playing basketball for 20, we get it 25 years of his life at this level where it's like all
Right,
eyes on me since you're 15. It's just
right.
gonna run out. They just need to figure out a way what big can we get in here? What role players can we get in here to play the role while we let Luca take the transition? Because, like I said, I think LeBron is good with Luca because him and Luca play the same way. Luca, I imagine, wouldn't mind standing in the corner and taking a break for a couple of possessions offensively and then coming back and playing some defense, just the same way LeBron would. And I think they're still both dynamic enough that you can't take a defender off of them. You still got to have your better defenders on each one of them when they're on the floor. So the Lakers just need to operate like, listen, we just need to get some people in here that can create plays for themselves, and a guy that maybe could defend the rim, and a big that could maybe stretch the floor. But if the guy doesn't shoot threes, dog, that's fine. Just rebound and kick it out to Gabe Vincent, and maybe he won't go 1 for 11 every single night when he gets an opportunity to shoot 11
All right.
shots.
Well, last one before we move on. How are we feeling? Because I know we were kind of both down on the whole. Yeah, Kevin Durant ain't taking y'all over the top. Now they done went out and got Clint Capella. So that gets some more front court depth. Talking about trading Cam Whitmore. A week later, how do we feel about the Rockets now?
I still feel the same way because we don't know if Kevin Durant's gonna play 60 games.
Okay.
So like that's the kicker. If he's gonna say he say the expectation is in conversation they got going on, hey, KD is gonna play between 60 and 62 games. Then that means, in my opinion, based on the way their team is kind of built offensively,
Mm-hmm.
if he's gonna go, you gotta go 45 and 17 in the 62 games that he plays.
Okay.
Because I think in those remaining 20, you can't go 8 and 12. You know what I'm saying 53 and 39 looks like a good record, but it's gonna have you in the same spot you're in this year where you're in a bad matchup in the first round of the playoffs and you're out. So if he can play, if he gets you 70 games, I think they're good to go. But if based on recent history, he's only giving you about 60 games, you got to get 40 to 42 of those games if he's only going to give you 60.
Okay.
Because I don't think they
All right.
have enough. Like, even with all those little additions, I think those additions work with KD on the floor.
Okay. And then actually I just forgot one last thing for real this time.
Yeah.
This is year one of this whole new apron process and everything. Um, how do you like it so far? Do you think it's a hindrance? Do you think it's okay? Do you think we need more time to see how it develops?
I like the I like the parity. I like teams not being able to just load up on stars. I don't think it's crazy that Miles Turner didn't re-sign with Indiana. I think it'd have been crazy for Indiana to pay him $100 million to stay, knowing that 25-26 season is not going to resemble 24-25. And why are we going to, attach ourselves to someone for 3 or 4 more years?
Mm-hmm.
I like that it's gonna make teams make moves. The problem is gonna be just people talking about who needs to win a championship. That conversation hopefully will subside because realistically, the owners want to keep all their money. The salary cap isn't so that it's fairness in the league. These caps are set so the owners can keep their money. Because if it was about winning championships, I'm pretty sure some of these owners want to win championships more than they want to make money. Like some guys might have making money as one, winning championships is three. Some owners might have like Ishbia winning the championship might be number one. So I think if he could just spend all the money and get all the pieces he wanted, I think he would. I think he would spend $1 billion
It would be the
on a
Dodgers.
roster, yeah, for 1 year. I think he would throw as much money as he could at any of these stars. I think he would just throw handfuls of money. So the salary cap and the aprons is to protect the team's interest, which is their money. The players are going to have to adjust to, hey, you might not get that max deal that you want. Everyone's not going to get the Shea deal. Like Shea just got 71 in previous years. The next guy to get an extension, you expect him to get 72 and a half just because. But it's like if Jalen Brown was up for an extension, I don't think he's getting 73 and a half just because Shea got 71. So I think it's going to cause GMs to have to really make moves, truly understand like, okay, how do we build this team? Who do we pay? Who do we let go? Who do we trade? What assets do we trade? So it's going to be a little bit more entertaining. Like I said, I'm just glad you can't just buy the big, a big three or a big four and just run the ball out there and try to win a championship. I like it.
See, I think the NBA is chasing something that they don't need, and that's not realistic. I think that the NBA looks at, to some degree, they look at the popularity of the NFL, for example, and we always talk about it. You could have a Cleveland Carolina Super Bowl, and we're going to be front and center on that couch
Yeah,
watching that game with no complaints.
eating
You,
chicken
you know,
wings, drinking whiskey.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Whereas now, we saw what just happened with this last finals, the outcry from the public and the lack of people watching it, so on and so forth. So I think the NBA is chasing that parity that you spoke of, but the NBA does better when they don't have the parity.
They
You know what I'm saying? The
so you're
problem
saying
is that
they need the Chicago Lakers,
yes,
Boston
and
repeat.
and how do you get that? It goes back to what we said a few weeks ago. You just gotta market. You just got to market because OKC ain't going nowhere. So like now's the time to. I'm not saying they're going to win 3 in a row, 4 in a row, but but this is the time where Shea, he was on Good Morning America. Good, what I'm saying, you keep putting his face out there. You got the
12 people
Rockets.
saw that.
Yeah, you got the Rockets now. With Kevin Durant. Now I need to see more Amen Thompson, or saying in different places, different spots. I need to see. If you're looking at a team like the Hawks, right? They just went out
Adam
and got
Silver was doing a podcast tour the week after the finals before the draft. He was on Jeff Teague's podcast.
yeah.
So like I think that would help. I know Roger Goodell doesn't normally do. I know he does like ESPN stuff. I think a couple of times he was on like Monday night with the Mannies when they're doing their little basement stuff.
Right.
And obviously he talks during the draft. But like football, like we talk about, football is so popular. Every town in America right now has a couple of dads going through equipment lockers, making sure all the helmets and shoulder pads are good because it can be issuing them out to kids here in about 3 weeks when football practice starts. So that's the thing that America just ingrained and ingratiated itself to football. The NBA, like I said, I like the parity because we talked about the Phoenix Milwaukee series. I'm like, I don't know why people were down on that. Like you had a guy who had won 2 MVPs.
Because they
Chris
were told
Paul's
to be.
Chris Paul's a very popular player. He's part of the Banana Boat crew. He's been around. He's a villain in the league. Devin Booker was up and coming team. Phoenix was up and coming. So it's like I don't know why that series got so much flack, but we saw it recently. Like I said, the OKC Indiana thing, because that was good basketball. But the NBA still needs to get. I need Houston, Dallas rivalry. You need the youth. The youth. When you take a plant, yeah, you could take the leaves off of one plant and put in the pot and it'll grow. But normally you take a brand new seed, you put it in the pot, you water it properly, you cultivate it, and it grows. The NBA keeps trying to pluck these leaves off and get these old heads to go to new teams and grow that market and then move them again and grow that market. It's like, no, put Reed Shepard in the game, put him in the 3-point contest, put him in the commercial, put these guys in position to where they are actually advertising.
Right. And that's all it comes down to, but, just a quick thought. So then, of course, in the NFL, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers, according to the experts, going all in. All I see is they just made a move to make a move. You know what I mean? So, of course, they went and got Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith along with a 7th rounder, gave up Minka Fitzpatrick and a 5th rounder. Mr. Logical, it just doesn't do anything for me. Like, I remember there was this old Sprite commercial back in the day, and there was this dude, he was just like, but what's my motivation? Like, I don't have a motivation to care about that trade outside of the fact that we got to talk about it. I don't know why the Steelers made the trade. You know what I mean? They got Freiermuth. You got Washington, a 6'8" tight end that you barely use anyway. And Jonnu Smith's a good tight end, so I'm not even trying to do that. But you just didn't need him. As far as Minka for Ramsey, Minka's 2 years younger. He's probably the overall better player, not by much, what I'm saying, but probably the overall better player, especially at this point in their careers, because Ramsey is probably going to be sliding over to Minka's position, or playing in the slot a little bit more. So I don't see this as hey, the Steelers are going all in. I just see it as the Steelers haven't been making moves. They made a few moves and they just wanted to make some more.
I think the Justin Fields, Russell Wilson move last year was like, okay, let's try something new, because they were essentially running it back with the same construct every year. And then even in the draft this year, we thought they were going to take Shador, and they ended up just taking a defensive lineman, which works because that's what they do is they take defensive linemen, they take linebackers, and they make that work. So on the offensive side of the ball, like I was having a conversation with an individual on one of the podcasts. He was talking about prime Aaron Rodgers is better than Mahomes. I'm like, I get it. Like he had a great run, but he's a bit of a front runner because see when he's not in the lead going into the fourth, he rarely comes back. So it's
Right.
like I don't it's Pittsburgh is gonna probably get you the lead. I think he'll do well, but I'm not sure if he really moves the needle. Trust me. And with Arthur Smith, I was as a Falcons fan, I was there for 3 years. It just doesn't seem like that is a marriage that's gonna work because we saw how he treated Robert Sala.
Hmm.
It's like if you don't align with me on the schematics, I'ma just deviate because he's a bit of like I said, he's a bit, and like I said, he probably knows more about football than I'll ever learn. But in the same sense, the results don't match up to this expectation that people have that Pittsburgh is going to be like this next greatest thing.
Right. Well, I was looking at their schedule. You know what I mean? And like, we're not doing our preview show right now. You know what I mean? But just for the sake of conversation, I was looking at their schedule, and realistically speaking, I don't see how they don't go 5-0 to start. Unless Justin Fields is that revenge hungry that he's gonna do things that we've never seen him do before. I don't think that they lose that game, the Steelers. I think that they beat up Sam Darnold. They go after Drake May. They take out JJ McCarthy. They beat Cleveland, and then you could be looking at a 5-0 team that still finishes 10-7. But I don't think we can classify the Steelers as going all in because outside of grabbing DK Metcalf, I don't know who they grabbed that just stands out in a way that thinks over the top. Because even if you want to roll with Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks we ever seen, and he absolutely is, he hasn't been that for about 3 or 4 years now. You know what I mean? And with that Steelers offensive line, he doesn't have the mobility anymore to just get out of the pocket the way that he used to. Because some of his
Arthur
best work,
Smith is not going to call good plays. It's
well,
that
that
simple.
too,
He
that
does
too,
not call good plays.
you
We have
know,
4 years of sample size to show
that
that
too,
he has not called good plays ever since the play action with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill has gone away. He has been subpar, and Aaron's not going to like it. He's not, and Aaron's not going to throw on 3rd and 7. If it's not there, he's going to throw it out of bounds, put the defense back on the field. He's going to be on the sideline upset because so and so isn't open. DK is
right.
going to be upset. He's not getting the ball. I
And
just
then
feel like
then
there's
you
going to
got
be more drama than you know
and then you
people want.
got they lost Najee Harris. So Jalen Warren should get some more snaps, who I like a lot. He's electric, but he ain't that type of back. And then they went and got Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, who's Derrick Henry size, but Derrick Henry, he is not. They got Kenneth Gainwell from the Eagles. They got Trey Sermon. So like even from a running back perspective, and you top of that with the bad offensive line, I don't know if they're going to have the type of running game that saves Aaron Rodgers from having to be the hero down the
I
stretch.
don't know if their offensive line is bad. I just think like
Oh, it's bad.
I,
I mean, they're
it's
young
bad.
mostly, but
It's probably bad because the play caller and the person who designs the offense doesn't put the Russell Wilson was an undersized quarterback trying to reprove himself after having a bad year. And then Justin Fields was a guy that didn't really, I won't say didn't process information, but he definitely wasn't a first read guy. And then you have a playmaker that has literally no like creativity. So yeah, the offensive line is gonna look terrible if every route is the same all day long to the point where it's like this isn't
and
gonna
that ain't
work.
going to
And I
change
think that's the
now.
problem. and that's the problem. And
I
that's
mean,
why,
unless Aaron Rodgers takes over as the de facto offensive coordinator.
I mean, we saw it work with Tom Brady and Bruce Arians, where they were kind of butting heads, and then he let him and Leftwich kind of figure out what they were going to do, and they just ran with it. And then Bruce went upstairs, keep cutting his check to sit in the office, and Tom Brady
Get
led them
that
to the
ring.
Super Bowl. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and then Miami went out and got a retired tight end to replace Jonnu Smith. They went out and got rap sensation Darren Waller, comeback Kelsey. Save this man.
I mean, I know he went through a lot, personal struggles, drug addictions, failing drug tests. Him and Max Crosby talk about it a lot, about overcoming that. But as far as the football players, like, I saw one game when he was playing for, I believe they were still in Oakland. They might have been in Vegas. I'm not sure, but he was playing for the Raiders. He got like 20 targets one game. He was getting double covered, and Derek Carr was like, he down there somewhere. So for someone, and I get it, the toll it puts on your body, the tolls it puts on your mentals to prepare yourself for NFL season, and you need to step back. But I just don't know how you turn it completely off, and then on a whim in July 2025, after you've been out for as long as you have,
right,
just jump back into the pool. And then on top of that, Miami seems to be in somewhat of a flux with either the relationship between coach and some of the players, the star wide receiver and the
well,
quarterback.
Did you see Mostert's tweet?
Oh yeah, play like if you play like a Pro Bowler and they treat you like shit, something's up. And we already know, like, the owner's been in his situation, being suspended from the team, which I don't know how you go suspend me from something that I own. It's like telling me you lock me out of my house. Like, eat a dick out here. I gotta sign these checks. I gotta make sure people are doing their job. I don't care what you say. Like, I'm not just be paying people and not knowing what's going on here.
Right.
But we know how, like, like that's not an environment that the Hunts are running in Kansas City. Everybody might not be happy with their contract or how the GM, prioritize their, them. But in Miami, it seems like it's this level of discombobulation that we can't see. And it's kind of matriculated down to the players. Tyreek Hill was talking like he was trying to leave from like week 10 last year, all through this off season on Twitter, social media. But like, he has a huge brand, so he has to keep himself kind of in the eye of the public. But I mean, he's literally getting arrested on the way to the game. It's like that. It seems like to be a bit of a dysfunction and a disconnect with the Miami Dolphins and sanity. It's like it's not jiving. Another thing, you got Tua, who's a 6 foot tall left-handed quarterback. Dylan Gabriel sitting there. Why didn't you take him? I mean, like, why did just think about
they
these
took a
kind
better
of moves.
quarterback.
They got Zach Wilson.
Well, I was talking about Quinn Ewers.
Cut it out. I like just like little things like that. I know I am just a guy who has a podcast with a friend that he's been friends with for over a decade, and I don't know everything that's going on in sports. But if I know enough about it, and then I see a move you make, and I'm like, I don't understand this, and then you talk to other people, they're like, I don't understand this either. It's not us. It's not the people who are watching. It's you. Like, your decisions don't make sense, coupled with the fact that emotions say you play like
I
a Pro Bowl
mean,
and it feels like
to
shit.
bring it full circle, I guess you could call Miami the football version of the Brooklyn Nets. They traded a guy for a guy that are going to provide the same thing. And then they went out and got a retired tight end for no reason at all that nobody was thinking about.
Unless the Giants are that terrible of an organization
I
that
know, but we just had an NFL draft.
Come back.
We just had an NFL draft a month ago, a month and a half ago. You could have got a tight end then. If it was that serious,
maybe they heard through the grapevine that he was available. Like I said, I don't know how you turn it off and turn it back on.
Like in his career, right? He's played 6 games, 12 games, 4 games. Then he had 2 16s, then 11, 9, 12. So you're not even getting somebody reliable. You know what I mean? First of all, and he's coming back from a year off. So maybe he's all healed up, but I don't like the way that sounds. And then you got, in his career, he had the year that you were talking about 145 targets, 117 the year before that. And then there's a whole lot of low output because of the injuries. So from that standpoint, I don't know what the Dolphins think that they're getting. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, because Johnny Smith had a pretty good year considering that his quarterback is always out. You know what I mean? So I don't know. And as far as the Steelers go, I don't think this move does anything. Their defense is already their defense. Cam's a year older. You're still trying to figure out TJ Watt's situation as far as, are you going to pay him? What does that look like? He doesn't strike me as the type that would hold out per se, but I still imagine
holding out does nothing for the player. I think they get fined like $50,000 a day. It's the worst negotiation tactic in the history of negotiation.
It's like my guy. I got a guy that works at Safeway, aka Slaveway. And like all these stores in Colorado are just walking out. And I was like, so what's the penalty for this? They ain't just letting you leave. It's like $350 a day, is the fine. So, it's like, well, y'all better win.
Yeah.
Y'all better win.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't seem fair. Like I said, the problem with Pittsburgh, is that their division, they're behind Baltimore. Cincinnati makes 3 defensive moves, and then they're battling with Cincinnati for 2. Cleveland is Cleveland, but Cleveland does load up well defensively. And Flacco is a competent quarterback. I believe he's going to be the starter. And they do have some weapons. So they're in a tough division where Cleveland could literally go 8-9, but go 4-2 in division.
Right.
It's like they're that kind of team where, like, it doesn't matter how they play against everybody else. Against each other, they can just be a different team. So the Steelers making all these moves, it can look like it didn't work simply because the competition you have to go up against. So that's the problem. And like I said, we knew for some reason there's a lot of conversation with Mike Tomlin on the hot seat over the last couple of years. You've been kind of cooking that stove up. This is a kind of off season that gets him potentially removed if he gives him another 10-7 year in the first round exit.
Me like that.
Yo, you were cooking it up.
I ain't got Mike Tomlin on the hot seat. No, I said that Mike Tomlin should walk away. I didn't say they should fire him. I'm saying that he should get fed up with their bullshit and he should leave. Now McDermott, on the other hand.
Oh yeah, you got him.
I got him in the fryer right now.
Purgatory.
Like, bro, if I don't even, I'm blaming everything on McDermott. They like, James Cook trying to sell his house. That's McDermott, even though it's the front office. It's McDermott. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, all I'm saying is, bro,
they don't have enough Gatorade cups on the sideline. That's McDermott's fault. Everybody thirsty.
If we get to January this year or in 2026, if we get to January and these fools lose to Kansas City again, I don't want to hear nothing from none of y'all.
Listen, we're not making predictions, but that matchup, it can't happen. It can't happen, right? It cannot happen. They cannot lose to Kansas City.
Bro, you remember what I brought? You remember the analogy I brought up last year?
It has to be mathematically impossible. Where's Neil deGrasse Tyson to break this down? There's no way a team that matches up this many times in the playoffs over this span of time to be this equally talented. Like, it's not like it was years where they didn't have the talent match up and they were getting the pieces and still losing. It's like they are equal. They were up
You remember
4.
the analogy
They
I
were
brought
up
up
3
going
with
into that?
13 seconds left 3 years ago. Like, it can't be that far off.
You remember the analogy I brought up before the playoff game last year?
What's that?
I said this is Jordan trying to get through the Pistons. You know what I mean? But realistically, if they play again this year, it might be Jerry West trying to get through the damn Celtics.
Yeah, but eventually he got through. It didn't take 5 different playoff runs. It took a couple. You went through.
Hey, it took
You and your
Jerry
guy
West
got
like 8 years, bro.
you and your guy got bigger and stronger in the gym, and then you came back, and then you had him walking up the court early, and then you won your championship. It just it has to be an anomaly if they match up with Kansas City again and lose. Hell, same thing for Baltimore. You can't be at home for a playoff game and lose it again. Like,
yeah, you just can't.
it sucks because these guys all got drafted the same year, and we should be kind of rejoicing in this thing that the NBA will love. The NBA will love to have 4 guys that were drafted in 2021 competing for these final 4 spots in the playoffs every year. They would kill for that scenario. The NFL's got guys from 2018. Hell, throw Baker in there. There's a lot of Baker for MVP stuff. So the NFL still had, for a couple of years, Brady, Roethlisberger was still around. You said Drew Brees for a couple of years. Then you had Aaron Rodgers. Then you still had the young guns. You had your Mahomes, Allens, Lamar, taking over Flacco's spot. Like, all these kind of these inner we transitions. But now you have Aaron Rodgers is kind of on the outskirts by himself as the proverbial old head. Matthew Stafford's getting up there, but I don't think Matthew ever really had the same amount of pressure. But the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers marriage, it has to work. The problem is the only year I could really think of where Aaron Rodgers really came through when they were like in the down bad, like they really needed a great run, was the year where he spelled relax in the locker room.
Right.
I felt like that year he kind of took it game by game, and they went on a streak 5 or 6 games and then making the playoffs. But for the most part, I don't really get a lot of those kind of moments. And like I said, I don't believe the marriage between him and Arthur Smith is going to be beneficial.
So all right. Last question to get us out of here.
All right.
Yes, true or false? Aaron Rodgers is better than Drew Brees.
I'm gonna say it's
Oh, there's a
tough.
lot of thinking going on over
It's
there.
it's it's tough because I gotta look at, because I watched a lot of New Orleans games because of the Falcons. I've seen a
Right,
lot of
right,
those
right, right,
games
right.
where 3rd and 8, even not even like clutch moments, just like first quarter, 9 minutes to go, it's their first drive, 3rd and 8, and he drops back the pass. I'm like, this is gonna be completed. I just felt like that so much.
Right.
I don't know. That's a tough question. I know people are gonna look at stats, but each one of them have astronomical stats. I know Aaron
Right, right,
has the
right.
touchdown interception ratio, and I believe the passer rating, but I just feel like I I don't see as many clutch throws and like comeback moments for Aaron. I know he has a lot of Hail Marys.
Yeah, I was about to say you ain't fucking with the Hail Marys.
I know, like, the Hail Marys are dope. It's just I
It's
just
just
feel
crazy
like,
though, because all this stuff that we've been saying about him, his teams have lost 8 playoff games that the offense has put up at least 30. That's bananas to really
yeah,
think
that's
about.
yeah. Yeah, that's it.
You know what I'm
Like
saying?
maybe because I need to kind of peel back my biases for Aaron. But like I said, Drew Brees just was a guy I paid a lot of attention to. I just felt like Drew Brees was always kind of willing his team in certain moments.
Yeah.
And I don't feel the same way with Aaron, but maybe because it looked like it came effortlessly. Like it looked like it just kind of came like, oh, I'm just naturally this good at this.
Right.
That
Right.
Tom Brady looked like he was putting a lot of work in because he wasn't moving that well. He wasn't fast. He didn't have like outstanding wide receivers aside from a couple of years he had Randy Moss. It just felt like he was always putting in a lot of work to make 24 and 27 points for New England
Right.
happen. I just feel like
Right.
some years with Aaron, he would get 30 because they just had the weapons, but like maybe these guys were weapons because they had the ultimate weapon thrown on the ball. So I think that's something that I have to like really look at and really digest, not just look at the stats, but like really think back through to all the years of
Okay.
NFC football that I've watched.
All right. Well, on that note, folks, we will be back on Friday. You know what I'm saying? Some more NBA free agency going on. We're getting closer and closer to football preview season. It's about that time.
Man, we are
Lock
far off.
in.
We got other stuff going on. I know everybody's so concerned
Hey,
with talking about football.
hey,
Every once in a
bro.
while, when
All
trade
I
happens,
know is
we got basketball, we got baseball still, we got
All I know
WNBA.
is on July 31st, we got the Hall of Fame game. That's what I know. But I
That
do
is
know as well,
crazy.
hey, how about those
That's the earliest I've ever seen that game.
how about I was looking at them standings earlier, right? Blue Jays and Rays only a game behind the Yankees. You know what I'm saying? It's heating up in
Aaron
the
Judge
American
is
League East.
hitting 364 with 28 home runs.
Ain't that some shit? You know what I mean? Like, speaking of which, one guess real quick. Do you know, or at least as of yesterday, I didn't look today, who was tied with the Dodgers for the best record in baseball? One guess.
Milwaukee.
The Detroit Tigers.
That is the craziest thing you've said since we've had this show for 2 years.
On that note, y'all.
To the point, I don't even believe you. I got to check it.
Yeah, they might have lost yesterday or something, but when I looked yesterday, because I was trying to place my bets and everything, so but we will be back on Friday, y'all. Enjoy the free agency, enjoy the fuckery. Maybe by the time we talk to you again, the Lakers will have a center. You know what I mean? Or maybe LeBron would have asked for a trade. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? That and much more on Sports Reports is ordered. He is the world famous, the one and only, the world renowned. He is Mr. Logical. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
And I am your unorthodox statistician 25. Shout out to Grandma. Shout out to Dylan Harper's mama. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Sonia Carey. You know what I'm saying? All that. We'll be back. Love ya. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. With a liquid death right by your side. Peace.